you can imagine. Now, the first rule of this session is that you should get your phones on. Not on. Well, not the sound, but the phones into your hands and the laptops into your hands, because we'll have a lot of checks and the polls, as you can see. And the first one, while I'm introducing the whole concept, you can see it over there. All you have to do is go to the menti.com and enter the code that you see over there. I hope you can see it from the back of the rows. And respond to the first question that we have for the start of the workshop. And that is, what is the main cybersecurity related challenge in Southeastern Europe? So whatever you think is going wrong in Southeastern Europe when it comes to cybersecurity, just type it. Let's see what's going to come out as the top one. For the time being, it was intelligence agencies, but let's see. We'll get back to that. Okay. The second thing, and I think that probably should have been the first one, is my name is Vladimir Radunovic from Diplo Foundation. I'll moderate this panel. You might have seen on the website that the idea of this panel is that it's not a panel, that it's actually a discussion. So the people here sitting are actually not here. They're not panelists. They are part of the audience, but they, just for the sake of microphones, they're sitting here. But I will present them because they'll help us reflect on some of the discussions today. So starting from the left is Gergana Petrova, whom you've already seen yesterday at some of the panels. From right, as you see, let's say technical community to some extent. Then we have Franziska Klopper, who is from the Geneva Center for Democratic Control of Armed Forces, GICA. Yes, I managed to say it once. She's in a way in the shoes of the security sector, but she'll probably explain it more afterwards. Don't hate her for that. And then we have Predrag Tasevski, who is what was the best way to present it, cybersecurity.mk. A researcher, a geek, also working in the bank, so he's also a kind of a private sector guy. Who's going to help us. And there are a couple of other people over there and all of you to try to help us discuss today. What is the concept of the session? We said last year at the CIDIC, we went into the roles of different stakeholders. This year we said, let's go into strategic level. What should be the strategic steps of the countries in Southeastern Europe when it comes to cybersecurity? And what is the level of regional cooperation? Where are we when it comes to cybersecurity? But this is boring. So we are not going to discuss it from that angle. We'll start from this different angle. We started from firstly from the challenges, and then we'll start from or move into a specific case of ransomware, which we had also in the region a couple of weeks ago. Try to dissect it to see what happened, what went wrong, who's guilty. That's the wrong question, but we'll ask it. And see what we should do as all the stakeholders, what should be done in order to prevent something like that. And then we'll raise it to the strategic level and see what are the strategic pillars that probably the region should have. Okay, now moving to the first part, let's see. Folks, I think you can give a quick comment. We have the identity theft as the key security challenge. Credit card frauds, but then I see governments, which is quite interesting. Anyone from the government who wants to comment?
Well, they're the problem. They generate most of the problem.
They are the problem, okay, one of the challenges. Anyone from the government who wants to comment? Fotiel, do you want to comment?
Go ahead.
The government make the regulation and the government standards or country regulation, but it's any time is in attack. So it's the most critical infrastructure in the part of the government.
That's a good way to see it. It's government is a target as well. I don't think that probably the people that voted like that wanted to say that, but there is also a matter of communication. Franziska, you work a lot with governments and the security sector. Are they a problem? Are the governments the challenge in cybersecurity?
That's a good comment we talk about. And of course, I think what we could probably think about is, scandals, recent scandals about misuse of surveillance technologies for political reasons and so on. So I think, yes, the government, if they misuse technology, then they become a problem.
Okay, we'll get back to governments on a particular case. But then we also have, and this is what I like, ignorance. That's probably one of the key messages that we'll take afterwards in the awareness raising, and I like this one on Facebook. This is interesting. But it's, since it is a cloud, it means a couple of people actually say Facebook. That's what's quite interesting. Okay, let's move on to the first part, which is, we can keep changing that, but we'll move to a second question very soon. And I do want to focus on a particular case of WannaCry ransomware virus, which we had even in the region here. Why is that? Because we want to go through what actually happened, and why did it happen? After all, whose fault is it, to some extent? So I'll turn to Peja to briefly explain us what the hell happened over there, and why did it happen with the ransomware.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, so the one that we had actually 2 weeks ago, it's still running. One at Crypto, so it's like well-known exploit, of course, but unfortunately what's happening is it has been publicly available for ages, but no one has exploited it very well, so no one has been using it. And what is happening is getting the exploit on one of the operating system access code, which is a server message block. What does it do is the exploiter gain access through backdoor, and within it encrypts your data in your hard drive, in your computer, and then makes you to pay with a Bitcoin or whatever, and then if you do so, then you can get back your data. If not, I'm sorry, but there is no way that you can get your data back. The main problem, this is a question that Lot mentioned, the main problem is here, we have several, let's say, I won't say fault, but let's say stakeholders that are involved. First of all, is the end user. Why is still using an operating system that is not supported any longer, which is an XP. First of all, so go from the first level. Then we have, second one, is the vendor, which is in our case Microsoft. They haven't patched this exploit for ages. They were aware. And then, third one, this was actually three or 4 weeks ago published on the WikiLeaks, where NSA was using this exploit for ages. So then we have 3 stakeholders that are, in my case, let's say fault. But which one is the first one? I will say the end user.
So the point is that here we have the vulnerability in the system, which was not patched, which was misused by government, which was not taken care of by the users, nor by the IT managers in the companies. Probably the CEO level also didn't understand that there needs to be more investment in cybersecurity for companies and institutions. Most of the people probably didn't back up their files, so they had to pay, right? Even those that maybe backed up their files, they had to clean the system, so the system went down, so it took some time and so on to restore it. That's why we had the whole chaos, right? And the particular thing about this virus is that this vulnerability actually allows the virus to propagate through the network without the need for every computer to activate it. So usually, in case of ransomware, we have to activate it, right?
Yes.
This one makes it that one person can activate it and all the others on the network get connected, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. Now the question for you, before I put this one on, is did any one of you patch the WannaCry virus? Now be frank. Or your institution, that's also an option.
We have one or no? No, we have smart people.
Okay. And any other ransomware before? Well, that would be really weird. No one. Ransomware? Seriously? Or you're just...
Or friends.
That's not
in our company.
Yeah.
In your company. Well, that's fine. Well, that's fine. You want to explain?
Yes, to be honest, it was my colleague from the business development, and he had a red face because it was a play, because he is IT literate and he know about that. But yes, that's the nature that he clicked where he didn't have to click.
But that's the interesting case of people that actually, and we all make mistakes. The problem is that then we are ashamed that we actually did something like that. And instead of saying that we did something stupid, we keep it quiet. Because we feel that someone else is going to blame us for what we did. And on contrary, the practice should be that we should say, okay, this happens. Let me at least say what happened, then the IT guys would know what happens, and then I would probably learn from that, and my colleagues would learn from that as well. So that could be one of the practices to change. Now, back to the sort of a voting. I know this is a very wrong question, but I'm purposely putting it on. Whose primary fault is it for the incidents like WannaCry? Governments, internet industry, like Microsoft and the others, the vendors, internet service providers, telecoms, and so on. CEO level, that means the decision maker level, policy makers, and so on, that do not invest enough in cybersecurity. IT support departments, or users. And I leave it to you to comment for a while. And then I'll pass the mic to Milan to put himself in the shoes of the government, which is very hard for me. Why do the governments use the exploits, and why does the NSA need it? I mean, can we trust them if they do these things?
Sure, now it's my, it's my turn to be the devil's advocate. Well, there was a lot of people crying at the NSA about, and the governments, and Microsoft was criticizing the governments for using these tools and creating these kind of tools. But they do because that's kind of what the intelligence agencies do. And it's not, we shouldn't forget that they're not actually the enemy of the citizens, or they shouldn't be the enemy of the citizens. They shouldn't be. They do have a role to play in societies. They do develop these kind of tools and use them and should use them against criminals, against terrorists, against the bad people. I mean, it would be in an ideal world, we wouldn't have security forces, we wouldn't have criminals, we wouldn't have weapons, but unfortunately we live in a world where we do have them. But they should be careful in how they store them. Same like they should be careful in how they store bombs, and how they use bombs. They should also be careful in how they store and use these kind of weapons. And there should be policies, there should be accountability measures in place, which we are lacking, and we're even lacking the discussion of it. And the discussion is not there because we ignore the fact that yes, they do spy, that's their job, that's what they do. They do develop this kind of tools, they will develop them in the future, but let's think how to make sure that they are deployed and stored properly, if that's possible.
This goes very well with the great discussions we had at the youth school in the first day. So I'll pass the floor to Mike, but I would also like someone of the folks, and especially ladies that were very active in the first day, those from the security group, but possibly also from the other, to sum up what did we discuss, or what was sort of arguments when it comes to the role of the security sector and the government in security in general, cybersecurity. So think about it. Any one of you from the group who's on security. But Mike.
Well, I actually had a direct point. I had a direct point that I wanted to make. So it's not about the youth school, forgive me. So the first thing is that I think that almost everybody in the room here will agree, or could agree anyway, to the fact that everybody at one point or another all of these stakeholders are responsible at some level. Users for not updating their software, or not backing up their data, companies for not supporting software security, but even then that's contentious because XP has been not unsupported for years. Is it the hospitals for not upgrading? But the fact is, this question is a bit misleading in a certain way, because in my perspective, WannaCry was very different from the others. I think that what the NSA did was absolutely criminal. I mean, the way that patients in hospitals might have died just because the NSA was using it for their offensive capabilities, I'm sorry, I'm speaking very quickly. Even though there is the convention in the United States that says that if they find 0 days, if they find backdoors, they need to tell Microsoft or whatever other internet company about it. So I think in particular, WannaCry is a bit different from the others, at least based on my experience, based on what I want to know. I was one of the 4 people that voted for governments, but this is not meant to put the governments, especially here in the region, on alert, because I think that this is a very specific case of gross negligence.
We should keep in mind that NSA is just one of the governments which is actually using the exploits. Some researchers, and I'll pass the floor afterwards to Adriana, did a bit of research on that, is that many other governments are actually investing in offensive cyber weapons. So this is becoming a big problem or a big issue, if you wish. We'll get back to that in a minute. I really want to hear, because I think the discussions were great. Conflicting sort of privacy versus security, even though it's not either or. But there were some great arguments about how to look into the role of the security sector, and that's why I wanted to hear. Shout.
All the way
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Yes, the Syndicate School yesterday had a very interesting debate. We had a privacy team and security team, and the security team highlighted the importance of cooperation, and we mentioned the WannaCry situation, please. And maybe in a situation where there is a strong cooperation between the government and companies, maybe NSA would warn Microsoft about the vulnerabilities instead of trying to use them for their own purposes and interests.
Thanks. Now I'm looking back at the results that we have, and I see that the internet industry grew up a little bit. So it's equal with the government. Which brings us back, Michael, to your comment, to what extent the government is definitely it's fault for misusing the exploit, but then again the exploit is in the industry, in the software, which raises the question of the liability of the industry. I don't know, Mike, you can pass the mic over there. Mike, you can pass the mic.
Let's go ahead. Go on. Mike.
Hey.
About the fault of the industry. Of course, they create the software, but there have been a lot of people saying, okay, we have to hold all the software developers accountable so that they're not allowed to sell software which has bugs. But this is completely insane, because that would pretty much kill the whole software industry the next day, because you can't have software without bugs. I mean, I suppose everybody knows that the more complex the system is, the more easily is for mistakes to slip by any kind of QA team. When you have something as complex as an operating system or a network composed of tens of thousands of computers, each with various operating systems, it's absolutely impossible for it not to have weaknesses and bugs and breaches which can be exploited. So if you're going to hold industry accountable, then we have to pretty much ban industry, which I don't think is really conducive to any kind of conversation.
A bit of a question or comment for you or for everyone on that, so maybe you can keep the microphone, is that we are not saying in sense of, or let's see what could be the liability of the industry. It doesn't have to be, of course, the banning, but if we expect to get the washing machine working properly, and we can complain if it doesn't. If we expect to have Samsung phone not to explode, for instance, and we can hold the industry liable. Could we hold the industry liable for the products which are not secure, in sense of they could either cover the loss, which can be great. They could invest more in bringing the ethical hackers to find vulnerabilities. They could even buy from the black market if that's the only way to do so. But and also the patching system doesn't seem to really work the way it used to be working.
Well,
Any comments?
I mean, I think that getting industry involved to find discovered bugs, that's standard operating procedure anyway, and that makes sense. But I don't think Microsoft or Google or whatever other software developer, when they're told, okay, we found this problem, let's fix it because this is something really serious, they will say, no, just go away, we don't care about this. I really doubt someone will say that. But for example, if NSA would be the example of NSA, if they would be actually about, protecting the citizenry as they officially, say they are, when they find this, a breach like that, an exploit like that, they should go to Microsoft and say, okay, we found this, let's fix it. Okay, maybe we can help you, maybe you do it on your own, but you should at least know about it. But no, they stockpiled it and weaponized it, and it's not just the NSA doing that. It's all many of the intelligence services. I mean, I was the one writing intelligence agencies because they're doing this kind of stuff, and this is a problem. I mean.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And that gives us also brings us to the discussion on the Internet of Things that we also had before. And the WannaCry is not the only example of the problems that we had. We had the Mirai botnet, which was actually hijacking the tools which are not protected. Because the industry that's producing the Internet of Things is not really investing in security by default, by design, for which. So that's also sort of a problem, but I think the message that we could get from that is sort of a communication that should exist between to the extent possible, between the companies, vendors and governments and so on, rather than misusing it. But before passing the floor to Los or Pekane, you can take it.
Yes, I would like to comment on what you just said about software liability. So I do understand your line of logic. When we have tens of thousands of lines of codes, mistakes are bound to happen. And I do understand that we don't want to burden the internet industry to the point that we stifle innovation. I mean, this is something that we all society benefit from. At the same time, keep in mind that 85% of all attacks are a result of vulnerabilities that have been known for 10 years. And so at some point of time, we need to draw the line as an industry and say, hey, you know what? Sure, there is a lot of complexity, but there needs to be also at least some level of responsibility. There is a lot of level of complexity in heart surgery as well. It is not only the software industry that is this unbelievably complex with no parallel in the universe. And there are a lot of, there's a responsibility in other industries, and there also, for example, insurance in case something goes wrong. So I think that it is a bit dangerous to lift all liability from companies that are producing software, because what that results in a competition to push products as fast as possible without any oversight of, hey, is my product safe? There's just pushing to the markets without any regard of what the effects on the consumer are going to be like. So it is important that we as society take a look at what we want to happen, and if we want this situation without any accountability to persist in the future. I'm curious what you think about that.
But make sure that you tweet. Be quick.
Yeah. Okay, so my retort to that is that yes, there have been actually most of the attacks are done against known exploits, but what usually happens is that the software developers fix them, but it is the users who don't apply the patches, don't do the updates, for various reasons. Some of them are out of ignorance, as it was mentioned. Others are out of various other reasons. For example, nowadays, with Windows 10, they force you to do the updates. And they slip in all kinds of telemetry updates, all kinds of borderline spyware, anti-features, and so on. So, for example, in Windows 7, Windows 8, where we could still refuse to do updates, people just check out of that saying, okay, I'll just stop doing updates because I don't want Microsoft to slip me telemetry updates.
Well, here's a counter argument. There are lots of products that they're no longer supported. So sometimes you have a software, sometimes you have hardware that runs a specific software that is no longer supported. So are you supposed to just check it out and get a new one? Especially in our regions, spending that kind of money is not possible. You still have machines that are 15 years old, and you would like to still use them, but the manufacturer is no longer supporting them, and so you're left on your own.
That's just the way it is. I mean, after all, someone who produced a piece of software at some point can be, a slave to everybody who ever started using that forever. At some point, it wouldn't make business sense to keep supporting decade-old pieces of software. Yeah, it's really, I don't know how to put it any more diplomatic, but yeah, it sucks. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I like the discussion because it really goes somewhere between the industry, the responsibility of the industry, the technical sector, the users, and then of course the governments which misuse it.
And just a small thing I would like to add. So we're now talking about, after all, Windows XP because one prime. But in the banking industry, they still use software written in Fortran and COBOL in 60s, 70s. They're ancient stuff. I mean, Bedrock knows more about this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of really ancient software being used in banking.
I think
Actually, banking no longer this applies due to the fact that regulatory has very strict rules and laws nowadays. However, on the other industry, which is air, planes, flight control, and all this, oh my gosh.
And I think what we get
Even
back to...
older than anyone else here in the room who have operating systems. Like there is only 2 people able to function and to maintain the software that you have in your control.
Everything else has
In
died of old age.
Yes. So if something happens to them, it's a crisis. Unfortunately.
And that's basically what Gergana also said, especially for the region, because, for instance, in hospitals or other services, in public service, we have systems which are linked to XP. If you want to get a new software that costs them amount of money, and then you also have to get the new Windows versions, and we don't have funds for that, and usually people say, don't touch it, it works, until something like this happens. Right?
However, when we speak about medicine, telemedicine particularly, I can assure you that the industry nowadays are starting to use the latest embedded systems and technologies and of course languages due to the fact that they are starting to be aware and they are starting to freak out. But actually they exploit it is exploitable and vulnerable to the attack. And especially we have seen to IoT now that we are aware. So this is the thing. Something has to happen, so then you start to be aware. Or you have to fall on the stairs and then you be careful. If you don't fall on the stairs, you won't be careful. So it's a very straightforward approach. And if something happens, then you're starting to be, oh, let's see what's happening here. And then you're starting investigating and then you figure it out. But actually, it's not a question, I do agree the topic that comes, and I said before, whose fault it is. I will say all.
And I think you're totally right. You can summarize what you said. When it needs to happen, unfortunately, and in many countries, including in Netherlands and Estonia, it needed to happen so that we realize. But then at least, as they say, don't waste the crisis. When we have the crisis, we at least shouldn't waste it. Now, I like that we have a huge number of comments on the users side as well. And we had some changes over there, more on the CEO level, which is also interesting, that there is a there's a gap between those that should be strategically thinking about investments in cybersecurity, either in companies or in governments, and those that should be actually implementing it. So that's quite an important issue. Before passing on to the next part, I just wanted to get back to Andreana about some of the research that she did on how many governments, how much, to what extent governments are actually investing in offensive and defensive cyber capabilities. I guess there are no governments, at least no records in this region, but generally globally it's interesting.
Hello everyone, I'm Diana from the Foundation. I was part of a researchers team that, as Lana said, mapped out the defensive and offensive capabilities of governments around the world. Now, offensive is very interesting because, shockingly enough, governments do not really want to tell the whole world how much they are going to invest. So we have data for Russia, China, Australia, US, Canada, and I believe England and France. It's a bit hard to access this over my phone, I'm sorry. But what I found particularly interesting is that Russia stated in 2016, Federal Security Service said that they are creating a deterrent system that is in response to similar plans announced by the US. So you can see that there is not a lot of trust among governments, and it's definitely the wrong approach.
Thanks. Any comments on this one before we move on to the next one? So the next one is now turning into what should we do? So the next one is, and I again invite you to, this is just kind of an open question. What are the measures? What are the lessons learned? What are the measures that we, any one of us, governments, industry, users, IT sector should do when it comes to cybersecurity to prevent these things to happen and to maybe react to them? So anything that you think should come up, you back up your data, that sounds good. Education, education, education. Go on. And I'll pass it to Peja, because Peja, you mentioned already some bits of that. But maybe give some other thoughts out of your head, just brainstorm what else should we do.
So first of all, awareness, awareness, awareness. Then education, education, education. But then comes something else. When you become aware, or when you become educated, what do? You start implementing security measures in your devices. However, nowadays we have thousands or hundred standards, frameworks, laws, or company policies. What has to be implemented? And I always say, nevertheless, what do? Be aware that your system cannot be 100% secure. Never. Always at 1%. It's actually one of the most crucial and most important. For this reason, I always say, use whatever you want, but be aware of using the best practices. The best practices are any process of backup, encrypt your data, if you have, of course, sensitive data, use antivirus, anti-malware, and so on devices. And of course, be aware of what you're clicking on.
Any other comments that you want to share without writing? Now I see there is a lot of education there. What I'm missing, but that's absolutely fine. What I'm missing is a more, well, education is a systematic one, but some of those are like backup and so on are kind of procedural ones. Is there anything more systematic that we see? That the government should do, like, that the government should do, that the private sector should do, that this is probably more on the user side.
Not on the user side. Well, I guess you could consider it on the user side. So for me, one thing that I was thinking a lot about is reading about the ransomware attack, I kept thinking, well, a lot of the system, or some of the institutions that were hit, for instance, hospitals, a lot of them say that, what I read, they say, well, we can't afford to upgrade our systems. Like maybe they have problems with funding. What I would suggest is potentially more multi-stakeholder solutions to help subsidize, whether it be private sector organizations or nonprofit organizations, whatever you want to call them. Let's say organizations that are there for the public good, to help them update their security software. Part of the problem that they have is, for instance, some of their vendors don't update their software. With the vendors meaning that they have software for specific health needs or for specific health functions, let's say, that are not being updated or that are, is really cumbersome or very hard for them to write new code for this or to work with the organization. So the point is, can there be more, I'm sorry if I'm not being very clear, what I'm trying to say is, can there be more kind of maybe government facilitated, sorry, I keep interrupting myself. Government facilitated interaction that can help, these public good, these institutions that are doing public good to secure themselves and do it in a cost-effective way. In the end, we do need to think about costs because they are really expensive.
I have Vladimir, and then I have Valentina, and then back again. So you worked a lot on the strategies in general, and as Mike said, if you go into sort of standards, sort of things that the industry should do, it brings more economic costs on them, right? On one hand, it brings a burden to them, but on the other, the communication between the stakeholders is also important. What are your takes?
Okay, thank you. Very important is relation between government structures and the private sector. And why? For companies, for industry, for private sectors is some procedures of information securities, and for the government is very important in the strategies. And all countries has a strategy of cyber security and action plans and all this. And according to this strategies is very important also legislations, because it requires functions for government and private sectors also.
Thanks, Valentina. In the meantime, I'm looking at what we have over there and some of the systematic sites, ABC 1 to 3, which is a very systematic response. Lay down and cry also, but there is
I like that mess.
there is make CSERT, the computer emergency response teams, basically on a national level, more operational, which is a systematic response to that.
And we missed one more, most important, just plug off the computer.
Yeah, there was one actually. Switch on the router. Yeah. Switch off.
No, switch off the router is different.
That's different. Okay.
It's different.
Okay, Valentina, and then we'll have in the back. Yeah.
Okay, so, did what? Yeah.
No.
So we are never safe, never secure. That's okay. So why we don't switch first of all to the open software, so that we can see?
No mic. No open mic.
Okay, no. Okay. So, we always talk about a specific kind of industry that use specific kind of software. They are proprietary and that you cannot look inside. And you have to believe what they say, that they are good enough. So, why we don't switch, at least when we talk about public, to free and open software so that they can be inspected? Why they don't pay and they don't invest? Because we talk about big corporations, we talk IBM, Oracle. If they just give the taxes that they do not pay in the country where they work to do what they are supposed to do, produce good, solid products, we might have less troubles. We will have always trouble. So let's give money back and invest the money so that the shareholders don't need to have billions to be ranking first and fourth and have more money than country, GPD or whatever. This would be one. Second, paying fines, because as a user, I cannot feel always the responsibility to be ingenious and be a genius, and I don't want to be constantly disconnected, because this is called a siege. I can stay without electricity if it's necessary. I can stay without the water. I can go also to take water nearby, but I don't think that this is my human rights. And innovation should be bound to human rights. So I think there are different models of industry. Why we always forgive this industry the abusive richness that they have?
Thank you. thank you for also linking this to human rights, because I think it's important. And we'll see many discussions about cybersecurity that human rights come hand in hand with that. We can get back to that later on. Francisca, and then we'll go back, and then back.
Yeah, actually I want to pick up from there, also from some of the other solutions that were suggested about, what different stakeholders can do, and I think that's all super interesting and useful. I want to just bring in a study that we did, I think Lara already mentioned it earlier. The Foundation organized it, I contributed to it in sort of paper on comparing really the state of cybersecurity policy in the region, in the Western Balkan region, and also then the second part was, ways of better cooperation between the countries. But on the first part about comparing the development of cybersecurity policies, what was interesting there, what we found is that basic laws on cybercrime, they were all in place. When it then came to laws on information security or generally more cybersecurity, countries were a lot less quick to enforce that. Also, setting up certs, some countries were quick, others are really dragging their feet. So, and not to talk in bigger policies, really preventive policies like big education policies, or setting up even discussions about public-private partnerships. That was, really missing. There are little things here and there, but not really a strategic efforts. And talking about strategies as well, some countries had set them up, but often they were just, a piece of paper not being used. And that, for me, is key in the policy process, that all these approaches seem very reactive. So you make a law quickly on cybercrime because everybody talks about it, and maybe it's even required by international organizations. But when it comes to having a strategy, really discussing the strategy, also using that discussion on the strategy as an opportunity to really talk with all stakeholders about what is really needed, what does cybersecurity even mean, and what are the challenges and the needs, but also the of different stakeholders. What can they also contribute? What is their role? These discussions were not had, and I think that's a big. It's general. Generally, I think we can say that for many countries, but this is what I know now because this is what we looked at in the region. So I think when we talk about these different solutions, and we talk about who's responsible, and that it's nice to have this discussion here, but I think these discussions have to be done in a more, serious and a coherent way at national level.
You basically raised the importance of, and I see that those things pop up now also as well, which is collaboration among stakeholders, communication, exchange of knowledge and information. Because, as you said, the strategic planning, especially the implementation part, cannot go without the ownership of all the stakeholders, multi-stakeholder approach in policy shaping, and then public-private partnership in implementation might be one of the messages. We'll go back to Gagana later. We go back there, and then we...
Hello, my name is Amit and I'm working for OSCE. We have recently developed policies with regard to cybersecurity, and we are working in the region for that. With relation to host country, I see some of our stakeholders here and some already left, unfortunately. However, I wanted to point out this is a risk management. We cannot be disconnected. We just have to make sure that the vulnerability plus resources, and we are calculating the damage. Is it acceptable or not? If the damage is acceptable to the party, then go ahead, get connected. If the damage is not acceptable to the party, then invest more. However, what we have noticed within national and international structures is that the lack of awareness until recent attack happens. When the recent attack happens, we have to see, we have to invest. And that's the life. The form of the crime has changed, so the form of the risk has changed, so the form of the evaluation should be changed as well. And I think the more we are aware of it, the better we can estimate the vulnerabilities of systems, of vulnerability of states, of institutions, and so forth. I'm not here to talk about government or private sector. I'm here to talk about the new form of economy, new form of crime, new form of transnational connections.
Thanks. Can you pass the mic over there? I have it. Okay. Good.
What something Mike said made me realize something. He was talking about, you know, having all this old software which is out of service, and that's essentially abandonware. If you're familiar with the term abandonware, essentially software which has been abandoned by its creator, and it's commercial software, proprietary, closed source, so you can modify. You just use it as it is and work around its imperfections. And I think that one option of not having this problem is stimulating the use of open source software, because with open source, even if, let's say, it's abandoned by the community, if something arises, you can still go and patch any newly developed, discovered issues. But yeah, in some situations it might be easy to stimulate the use of open source, in others not so easy, but I think this is something that should be considered and could be a positive step forward.
Somehow I get the idea that you were the one who posted keep calm, Linux, and encrypt. But
no, but that's good.
But that's the message. No, it makes sense absolutely. Open source is definitely one of the possible ways ahead. Gegana, you wanted to add something, and now move to the kind of a next level.
Yes, so we are talking about lessons learned from these attacks, and I have the feeling that we're missing one crucial piece of information, and that is who is behind those attacks. So what we know so far is actually from the WannaCry ransomware attack, there hasn't been so much money generated from it. I think about 50,000 euros. Okay, that is a lot for one person, but actually when we're talking about the grants, the global scale of the attack, that is not so much. So that raises some interesting questions. Are the people who are behind the attack not really professionals? Or are they masquerade doing this for training, so is there an even bigger attack coming up? Or are they just trying to send us a message? So what exactly is their goal? It's still unclear to us. And so maybe the one positive thing that is coming from the WannaCry, also the Mirai botnet, DDoS attack, is raising the awareness of how vulnerable we are and how vulnerable even our critical infrastructure is from those attacks. And so, yeah, Vlad already mentioned let's not waste the crisis, but maybe a lesson that we could also take from this cyber attacks is here to stay. So let's, maybe it's also important, for example, sometimes after a crisis like this, governments are really in a hurry to be seen as doing something, so they push some fast regulation without really thinking it through. I think it's really important for us to continuously keep in mind. So cyber warfare is now part of our lives, and we should not forget about it. We should constantly engage with governments, with all stakeholders about this, and keep the conversation going. Help them if they want to, for example, come up with some regulation to protect us. Be there to help them to develop it during calmer times rather than only responding when disaster strikes. I think I really hope that this kind of stays with us so we can continue the dialogue and hopefully come up with more informed way forwards rather than just reacting to the disaster.
Thanks. I'm trying to put it now on a little bit upper level. So before we had sort of the lessons learned and measures that we could take to respond to such a risk. And now we're trying to see what are the key priorities when it comes to strategic planning about cybersecurity. So some of the countries in the region do have cybersecurity strategies, most don't. Some of those that have copied something that Lisa suggested, which is good. Usually it doesn't go into implementation, but we can discuss that later. So I took out, the letters are small, but when you go to your mobile phones or gadgets, you'll see it clearly. What we're trying to do is to rate the importance of different strategic pillars for the Southeastern Europe. Now, all of them are important, but what do you think? What is more important than what? That's on one scale. On the other one is the reality. So basically, what is the reality of how each of these issues is dealt with in Southeastern Europe? And I'll read them through, and you can go to your devices and try to mark it. So first one is combating cybercrime. Then we have critical information infrastructure protection. Then we have CERT functionality. We have awareness in cybersecurity culture, education and research, public-private partnership, human rights and privacy, conflict prevention and confidence building measures, international cooperation, also in the sense of what Jordana mentioned, cyber defense, and child protection online. So you can try to rate each one of those on both scales, on scale of importance, as you see it for the region and for our countries, and then on the scale of reality, basically, or where are we, how, to what extent the countries are actually dealing with that in our region. And coming back to that, we have a couple of responses. Let me see, what we have. 4 is awareness in cybersecurity culture, seems to be the most important, but also the governments are actually working with that, or the systems, the countries are actually having that high on a strategic level. Okay, go on with that. In the meantime, Vladimir, I'll get back to you once again, because you worked on the strategic papers for Georgia. Some of the experiences and main pillars that were incorporated in the strategic planning in Georgia, having in mind all the political environment that you are in and so on, some experiences.
Okay, thank you. I would like to talk about our Georgian experience. As we have now second the cybersecurity strategy and action plan also. And on the second strategy, I worked on this. After August 4, 2008, where the development this sector with supporting of Estonian colleagues, and now what is important in this strategy is some international relations is very important. Awareness and education is also very important. And very important also some technical issues, and like some cyber lab and cyber laboratory is very important also. And the relation between the government, all stakeholders, and the government, private sector, there also the technical society is very important also. What about this? This is our small experience, Georgian experience.
Thanks. Anyone who wants to share experiences about the strategic planning and the process in your countries? How many countries do have strategy on cybersecurity from the region? Romania, Albania, Croatia, Ukraine. Does anyone want to, Slovenia, right? Does anyone want to share the experience? If you know the details of what's inside. Not much, huh? On the processor.
Maybe only say I don't know the details, but recently I learned that about 40% of the strategy is concerning education.
Yep. In Slovenia, that is true. They emphasize on education.
No, okay.
Yeah, there's one.
Okay. So, Rubin.
Yeah, I just. Sorry. So I just have one comment, one word comment about the Romanian cybersecurity strategy process. Closed.
But I think actually that's the case in most of the countries. That one of the complaints that it's done by the government without much of the consultations, and we've seen in a previous step to what extent the measures we need to take to prevent something like an attack is actually very a shared responsibility. And then on the other hand, we have, that's why this reality check is, now by the way, for those that are voting still, this SAT is the wrong one, it should be the reality. you know, change. Do you want to share anything about the Ukrainian experience, if you know, if you're aware about the process?
It's like the aim of the document is kind of very restricted because it is aimed at the countering the Russian aggression at the moment, but since it is a strategic document, then it makes more sense to make it in a broader way, so that in case some new challenges arise, then you also can apply this document for that. And also it prescribes more specific regulation to be adopted on the national level, but it also says about that anything which is counter to national interest and national security, and once it is considered like there is counter to national interests, then this should be kind of prosecuted, but it's still like at the strategy level. Who knows how to be more specified then.
Thanks. Can we get the idea from Slovenia? I don't know to what extent you're aware. This was the problem, but.
So hi, sorry, I just swallowed my gum. Okay, he jumped on me with the microphone. Anyway, yes, in Slovenia we're doing, I guess you could say, several things. So on one level we have a very good CERT system, so the Center for Strategic Responses related to threats around online and cybersecurity. On the other hand, we've just established a new agency that deals with online threats and cybercrime and cyber warfare. And at the same time, I guess you could say that's the similar as in Croatia. That's fine. But on the other hand, the recent idea is to move from raising awareness to establishing security culture. So it's not just that people are aware of not clicking links in weird emails, but that the companies and governments and other entities are, let's say, generally aware of the how to behave and how to react on things that are happening. So it's not just you should know about this, but you should know how to react and how to prevent these things. Thanks.
And a quick question for you about the process. To what extent was it open to? Was it open to?
Yes, I mean the strategy was written by the government. Then it was put into public discussion. In the public discussion, there were a lot of, as I said before, entities from the government, from the public sector, from the industry that participated and gave comments. The government took those comments, integrated it, let's say, more or less in the final strategy, and I mean, yeah, and then it was put into law, and now we're waiting for the government and the newly established agency to start using the strategy.
There was a sort of an open consultation process. Yes. Now, before passing the floor to Milan and then further, I'm trying to see what we have here. We have the most important, where all of them are close, and that's clear that you judge that all of those issues are very important. But what we see is that education and research is the top priority, if I can see well. And the second one is protection of the critical information infrastructure, and then awareness and cybersecurity culture, and then human rights and privacy. That's interesting. And then when it comes to the reality check, we can see that actually awareness is doing quite well in the region, and international cooperation to some extent. That's strange, but we'll see that. And then a little bit behind that is education, research, and human rights and privacy, and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll move on. Milan?
Thanks. I just wanted to make a general comment about. I live in Serbia, so I can comment about the process in Serbia, but I would believe that it also can be applied to all of the region when it comes to, in general, strategies and how we make them and what we do with them. Generally, in Serbia, usually the strategy drafting process is done in order to tick the box. usually because of integration or some other meaning, or just because it sounds good that we should do it. So often the inclusive process is very much lacking. So also the strategies should tell us where we want to get and how we're going to get there, and usually that bit is very much missing. We get strategies which usually describe the state of affairs as it is, maybe give general terms where we want to be, but then how we get there and who's controlling, are we implementing the strategy, whose responsibility is it, did we allocate resources, because we can say, you know, our strategic goal is to build a spaceship, but, you know, do we know how, do we have, we thought to build it? And so those things are often lacking, and they are lacking for the cybersecurity strategy development process in Serbia now, that is the way I see it. At the same time, I think it should be noted that having strategy is much better than not having it at all, because still, however it was built, it will have some good sentences, it may have a positive impact, and it may give umbrella to those who are willing to implement some portions of the strategy. So the strategy as a whole probably won't be implemented, but some portions of it may be implemented, and those who would be doing that would have the umbrella of strategy, which is very important. So yeah, that's...
I think the emphasis on the implementation is important, because we do see in our region that we actually have papers which are not usable, and that always brings me back to an interesting story. Some of you might know the story of lawyer Baltazar Bogisic, who used to be building up the civil law in Montenegro during the Napoleonic time, and he was basically asked to do a civil law for Montenegro. So what he did, he went through the people and collected the customs of people, what they do, how they feel, in order to involve them in building up the whole law, in a way to get them the sort of the ownership of the whole law. And then it was absolutely accepted and implemented, because it reflected the needs and people were involved. It is an old example, but I think especially in the case of cybersecurity, where we actually have a lot of stakeholders which do have stakes and you can't defend on your own, this has more sense than ever to bring all together and make it an inclusive process, which brings back to what Bogdan said. It's usually closed, unfortunately. But what's the experience from Albania?
Okay, in Albania case, cybersecurity strategy, the most important elements are education, of course, the critical infrastructure, and the safe internet that include children protection and user protection. And we are working also to cybersecurity law, which is included also cybercrime, and we are dealing with we have decided a methodology in how to prevent or to manage critical infrastructure attacks.
Thanks. That means, yeah, more or less the topics are similar across the region, similar to the European strategy, so it's not a big deal. The big deal is the implementation, actually. And I'll focus at the end just quickly on the international cooperation, because it's interesting that it's important. But on the other hand, while we do see a bit of international cooperation, or growing one, when it comes to the cooperation between the countries discussing the norms and confidence building measures. There's the UN government group of expert process of discussing the norms of behaviors of states in cyberspace. There's the OSCE process on discussing the confidence building measures among states to avoid the conflicts. At the same time, we know that, okay, the Balkans at least, but beyond that, the Southeastern Europe is sort of a barrel of gunpowder, and we always need a trigger for some big conflicts. Cyber could be, and we saw that around the world, could be a kind of a trigger of misunderstanding if there is no dialogue among states. Now, to what extent the region, Southeastern Europe, is actually involved in dialogue? Is there any sort of a cooperation among the countries? We discussed previously that the CERTs are cooperating, at least through ENISA and some established systems. But to what extent the governments are actually discussing cyber on their agenda when they meet, that's a big question. I'll pass the floor to Franziska again to maybe show us some light of what we found in the research, or what we didn't find in research, and then if there is any other comment about, or the example from the regional cooperation. Is this?
Let me start by what we didn't find in research. A lot we didn't find. We were looking a lot at what cooperation exists between the countries in the Western Balkans on all different kinds of aspects of cybersecurity. Because we thought, there's so many areas where the countries could really or have to cooperate with just on a very basic level of addressing common threats, but also exchanging expertise. Because we're saying we don't have a lot of resources, so it's good to exchange expertise or even tools. But also, to just have common policy discussions in order to maybe come up with joint standards or being together, being more presented in international fora where international standards in cybersecurity are discussed. So we didn't really find much at all, which I think again goes back to the fact that countries in general don't seem to have very clear and open policies about what their plans really are in cybersecurity, and therefore also what regional or international cooperation plays as part of this policy. So we looked, at more what already existing regional cooperation bodies do in this field, and of course they don't do much at all. These are bodies like the RCC, the Regional Cooperation Body for the region. Their main mandate is not cybersecurity, but still they haven't really taken it up yet. They're in the West Balkans or Southeast Europe, there's so many of these joint bodies that exist. A lot of them actually maybe don't work that much anymore. And few of them have really dealt with cybersecurity. If so, they maybe had a seminar here, another one there. But none of them has been given or has taken up a mandate to really do, either joint trainings, for example, or to sit together to work on joint policies. So that we found there's really quite a lot still missing, and that we should maybe think more about how can these bodies be used more. But before we even go there, I think before we even look at bodies or what, we have to really ask ourselves again, or the countries have to ask themselves, so why do we want to cooperate, and why is it important, and then what do we want to cooperate on? And I think that's important just to remember that whatever we talk about, we shouldn't set up another one of these many cooperation bodies which are nice and people talk about it and everybody's happy that there apparently is dialogue. But more that you think about, okay, how can cooperation help cybersecurity in the different countries, for the people of the different countries, where does it make sense, and who needs to cooperate? So it's not just governments. For example, law enforcement cooperation makes a lot of sense, happens already a little bit, can be increased. Governments, but also other stakeholders, how can they cooperate more, and how can different mechanisms be set up to facilitate their cooperation. But again, my main point was that whatever is done, it should be done in a, first of all, logical and but also in a transparent way. So it's really clear what is done, why, between whom, who's talking with whom, to which end, and that also obviously this is all done with the ultimate aim of securing the rights of the people and ensuring their security, but in a human rights framework.
Thanks. The findings were not really encouraging. We'll share, I'll tweet later on the link to the full report if anyone is interested in details. It's quite interesting. There are also some good suggestions on how cooperation in the region can be boosted. Is there any thoughts on the regional cooperation, or any good example that we can share on regional cooperation when it comes to cybersecurity? At least one. I was hoping to see one. I know it's hard to say. Two. Okay, that's comforting.
Yeah, well, I could share one example, which is actually coming from the Ministries of Interior, from police. So DCAT, the organization that Francisca and me are working for, is also hosting the Secretariat of Police Cooperation Convention in Southeast Europe, which actually facilitates dialogue and communication cooperation between the Ministries of Interior from Vienna all the way to Moldova. EU, non-EU, all the regional countries. And through that they have different working models. One of them is expert working groups on telecommunications, and within that group they are actually discussing the information security of the systems of ministries of interior and police. And in Serbia, and I'm sure in other countries as well, this is not just about protecting the police service or police operations or their surveillance capabilities. It's not that at all. It's actually protecting citizens' data, which is used and needed for the e-government services and the documents and etc. So there is this kind of started organically through their meetings, and information security is one of the topics, and this hopefully can then be raised to higher levels.
Thanks. This one good. Okay, we have another one in here. Well, it's good. We have something to share.
Actually, I want to give an example of Albania and Kosovo. It's very interesting. They have had common hackathons, and the ICTs will encourage students to participate and to learn more about information security. But and Albania's CERT and Kosovo ones have very interesting cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. I managed to lose all the three microphones. I don't know where they are. Okay, here and there. Oh, we have it. Okay. Then.
Okay, I'm a loudspeaker. So I'll be really short. It's just that yeah, I'm streaming and it doesn't work.
The streaming, yeah. Yeah, remote.
Sorry. Okay, it's working. Katek from Slovenia. It's actually ENISA. I'm sure you are aware of this institution. You can find, there's a group, Article 13A, which deals with these problems. And you can also find on their webpage all cyber security strategies of all European Union countries. So I think this organization also comes and helps different countries implement the strategies and so on. I think it would be a good place to go to, or at least inform yourself about the topic.
Yeah, sure. That is actually a very good point that you mentioned. However, we have been having troubles cooperating with ENISA due to the fact that several countries in the region are not a part of the European Union, nor haven't started yet the process of entering the European Union negotiations. For this reason, ENISA could not and will not and should not provide any support. Anything that they can do is publicly available on the website and so on. But coming to support, like mutual support or training like they do for any other European countries, unfortunately they cannot do this for this region. Yeah, we have been raising this for several times, that this has to be somehow tackled and handled in a different way, but unfortunately due to the fact that they are European founded agencies, so there are no ways of changing the law for it.
Still,
only for these countries. So.
Still, it says that of course the resources over there on the ENISA side are very, very useful. Okay, we have one comment here and one last comment there, and then we are wrapping up.
Okay, about cooperation about international relations, I would like to thank you, Francisca, for your comment about relation. It is a very important relation with cyber divisions of UN, EU, some Deloitte, some Microsoft. But it is also very important that the relation cooperation at the place it is named first. For example, Georgia is a member of FIRST. It's this place where you can share information about incidents, about nature of incidents, about crime organization of who was attacker also, about this is very important also. About ENISA also, Georgia began and implement standards of ENISA in our country also, and we are also cooperation with ENISA closely. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's important to know, of course, this technical level of cooperation which really exists within CERT first and many others. The last comment in the back rows.
Thank you. Sergio from Moldova. So I will try to cover all in one. In Moldova we have a program on cybersecurity. It's similar to strategy. The process was open, so we had all the stakeholders involved. We used to have the international expertise, so the cases of Estonia, Sweden, and Republic of Korea. On the international cooperation, so there is the International Telecommunication Union. It's a good platform for governments to cooperate. They are organizing cyber drills, and I would like to say within the EAP countries, so Eastern Partnership, there is a HDM panel, Harmonization of Digital Markets panel, and there is a Trust and Secure Action Line. So at least six countries are actively participating with the support of European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the thoughts. We are definitely close to an end. Before listening to a wrap-up of the key messages from the rapporteur, I wanted, you all to get back to your phones if you can. And we want to get a tweet from, hopefully each one of you, on your message from the panel today. So you can either tweet it, if you have a Twitter account, or you can, again, back to the platform and use it, disregard what says lessons, just tweet what you want to tweet. And in the meantime, we have 3 resource persons to tweet their own tweets. So, Gegana, you want to start?
To say or to tweet it?
Just say it.
Yes.
But tweet.
All right, I'll tweet it afterwards. I would say cybersecurity issues are here to stay, and all stakeholders should work together to address them.
Thank you. Francisca, you don't have the right to say retweet, so we have to hear your tweet.
I retweet and then I add to it. So, pull up. So, you're saying all stakeholders should do something, and I think they should stop dragging their feet and take responsibilities. Talking about governance, because you said earlier that I was talking. I'm not talking on behalf of government, by the way. I'm not working for the security sector or anything, but from governance perspective, stop dragging your feet and take your responsibilities.
Thank you. Peter, you already tweeted it. Should I read it or should you? No, go ahead.
It's fine.
Go ahead.
So, all in all, what we have been discussing today and what we have been tackling, and unfortunately, I can just say one thing. There is no solution to cybersecurity. There is no solution. We might say cybersecurity is sexy, and it is sexy. However, there are many other sexier keywords that are very important here. And there is a multi-stakeholder, multi-level, holistic, agile approach, and of course, in the end, someone already mentioned it, that creates a security culture.
You know, you start sounding like a politician. Okay. Back to the rapporteur with the key messages.
Very much. Together with Vladimir, we put up some notes for you. I hope you will agree with us again. So firstly, cybersecurity is quite a complex area of research. It goes firstly to vulnerabilities of an operating system, who, even though it was known, the vulnerability I mean, not too many users pay attention to it. Taking that into consideration, an advice would be to update the systems, well, antivirus and everything related to, and yeah, well, they, unfortunately, I don't really understand my writing. Yeah, users are mostly the weakest link. And according to a tweet that was a few minutes ago, ignorance seems to be our new best friend. Agree with that? Okay, yeah, I agree with that. on that. The second one is the software industry should be more responsible on their development. The human factor is very important. Are you agree? Yes. The third one, the most important word that we're supposed to have in mind when we run for cybersecurity, as you can see on the screen, are education, awareness, and a good security strategy for each of us. Is that, do you agree? Yeah. Cybersecurity laws are adopted completely different, unfortunately, from one country to another. One of the solutions might be in the top level discussion between different stakeholders, asking them to synchronize the strategies among them and among the countries, in the region. And one more thing that is, well, I'm a rapporteur, so I might not be, in the position to add comments to anything that, yeah, but I will take the opportunity. We debated a lot about WannaCry, but if we have to compare WannaCry with Stuxnet, with the Flame, with Duku, I think WannaCry is just a game for kids, if you are to compare with. Yeah, and that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for misusing your function, but it was useful, definitely. Patch your system, back up your data, update your antivirus, don't click everywhere, don't share everything, and communicate. Thank you for coming today, and well, we're moving to the closing session. Big round of applause for all of you.
We are now at the end of CD, and before I conclude, I just need to test the WebEx one more time because we have two online participants. Johan, can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you repeat, please?
Johan, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
Alright, so we are at the closing of CD, and we have a tradition from our past meetings. What we do is asking our key supporting organization a few words, and then we will get back to you and close the debate. And we will start, sorry, I'll try louder. We will start with Cengeta Kasango from the Secretariat of the Internet Governance Forum, who was not able to join us in situ, but who will be speaking online. Cengeta, if you can hear us, we are listening to you. Cengeta? Well, it seems WebEx is making us trouble at the end of the day. Okay, let's go ahead with the people who have the room, and I'll come back to check and everyone a bit later. So who's the Dutch winner? Among our supporting organizations, we still have in the room ICANN, the Internet Society, Drive, Afilias. Can you join us somewhere in the front row, please? Thank you, Andrea. Since you are the first, oh, I'm supposed to talk too? Everybody's exhausted.
Well, we take great pride in supporting CEDIC. We have such a great bunch of people that follow, so it's working. It was a great pleasure being here, hearing all the discussions, being a part of the discussion. It was all very enjoyable, especially a big fan of the closing remarks. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you around. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet, and thank you very much.
Okay, just a few words. So, I don't know where to start because for Icon, sponsoring CEDIC is it's almost a given because it really goes into our commitment to getting people understanding what is internet governance, getting closer to its core processes, and for us getting them closer to Icon. So for us it's an amazing action, and plus it's, and I can tell from direct experiences, by far the most advanced bottom-up, completely open, transparent, cross-national discussion about those issues that I've seen. And you should be proud of it. There is no other similar initiative that is really, I was discussing this yesterday in the class coming back, it's not attached to a particular country, it's not attached to a particular institution, it's really attached to the community. The community is, doesn't know border, doesn't know, it's really the internet community in this case. So I'm very happy to participate every year, and I'm very happy to see how it grows. I only have a request for you, is that you should appreciate what you created, I think, a bit more, and feel the ownership and make it grow even bigger and larger. So when you go back to your own country, speak about CEDIC with your community, with your friends at work, even with your family, with your friends. You know, I don't mind if next CEDIC will see your grandma's coming. Show that they use internet, they go on Skype, but they're as concerned as you are about these issues. So I would really like to see more uptake from the community. We have, for the first time, we have the youth participating. I was amazed by the day that we spent together on the 24th, and the CEDIC fellows. So those are all ideas that came through discussion with the executive committee and the community. Think about how you can contribute, how you can feel it even more closer to your needs and how you can serve the needs of your community. And I look forward to see you on the next CEDIC edition and to get engaged as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Jean-Jacques, to Luna, Bukit, and everyone else from Icon Questions. Does Siranush be somewhere around? Thank you. Thanks so much. Let's try again with our remote participants. Johan, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. We fixed technical problems. It is great to hear that you have an excellent conclusion of the meeting, and congratulations for your host, Macedonian government, and all colleagues who were involved in this process. I would like just to mention 2 points. The first one is the link between Geneva and the CEDIC process. We had an event co-organized with Macedonian Permanent Mission in Geneva, where we tried to link dynamics in Geneva in the field of digital commerce, data protection, human rights, telecommunication infrastructure, with the regional development. And I hope it helped awareness building in the governments in the region about CEDIC, and we plan to do more. We'll definitely brief them about the outcome of the CEDIC meeting. This is the first point. The second point is that we as a region are close enough to the major technological centers and to the places where technology is designed, but we're also far enough to keep some sort of a spontaneity and creativity of the region. And I think that we should cherish that, and we should find the space for creativity and innovation in this element of being close enough to the major technological center and being far enough to have some sort of space for innovation and creativity. That should be cherished throughout the region. The region has enormous potentials, many creative people. History wasn't very gentle towards the region, but I think that we have a new chance, all countries, all people in the region, to develop something new in the digital field. And I would like to invite you to continue with these efforts. You can count on Diplo's support, both in Geneva and through our office in Belgrade. And once more, I would like to congratulate all of those who are very involved in the organization of CIDIC. I know that you put a long hours, but you also put a lot of emotions, as it is typical for our region. And what I can hear is that it paid off, and you had a great event. Therefore, big congratulations from Geneva. Keep this way, and you can count on our support. Thank you very much.
Thank you also for shouldn't be doing this because I'm working for Diplo Foundation, but I need to thank my colleagues because they have been really helpful. So Vlada, Arvin, Daria, and everyone else in Belgrade, and let us try with Chengetai as well. Chengetai, if you can hear us and you can speak. The sound is a bit low, so let us try to change it, or maybe you can increase the volume of the mic. We're trying on our end as well. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you all for hosting the meeting. I'm very sorry that I wasn't able to join you. I didn't think you were able to come to my join you, but unfortunately I couldn't reach the other information. I would also like to congratulate the organizing committee, of course, Torino, who has worked at the secretary and I would also like to congratulate sorry, I'm trying to understand the name. I'm sorry about that. Diana, Ayuda, for the organization, and of course, Lara, she was doing a very nice job there in the last session, moderating that session. This is the third CIDIC, and I think CIDIC has been growing stronger and stronger with Austin here, and it's done a very good job within the region expressing the views of the CIDIC region, and I would also like to invite you all to also take part in the international activities that we have here in Geneva at the ICF. That we're going to be holding in December. The international activities start now, and your voice is very important and will be expected also on various international issues. Very important. I don't want to spend a lot of time because everybody was rather short, so I'm going to be short as well. Thank you very much, and I will try my best to make it for the next meeting.
Thank you, Jennifer. I should have said at the beginning of the session, this was Chineta Masango from the Secretariat of the Internet Governance Forum. For those of you who don't know who he is, so I guess those are very few. Thanks a lot, Chineta. And I have one special thanks to Anya Gengo from the IGF Secretariat, who has been helping us a lot in putting sitting together. She wasn't able to join us, but she's online and she has been extremely helpful. So Anya, wherever you are, thanks so much. And we have two other supporting organizations in the room, and I think I will start with RIBE. Svetlana, Suzanne.
Thanks. So I just want to say that it's a great pleasure for us to be here and also for IAC to support internal governance discussions in the region. And also wanted to very quickly remind you that we also host some regional events, and our next one is just in a few weeks in Budva on 12th and 13th of June. So if you're around, you're most welcome to join us. It's free. So if you would like to continue some discussions, please welcome.
Thanks so much, and one thank you also to Chris Buckridge, who hasn't joined us this week, but he has been extremely supportive to CDIC as well. So thanks, Ryan, thanks, ladies, and thanks, Chris. Let's go to my list. Desiree, are you in the room? I'm looking for you, but I don't see her. Okay, next on our list. I guess I'm moving to our regional supporting organization, Bogdan. Surprise!
So I'm specialized in one-word interventions. So I'll just say thank you in Romanian. I'm also
One word platform, we have two ladies around who would like to say a few words.
To show up, so that's what you get. Thank you very much, everyone. Macedonian of the city. Thank you.
And because I'm next to both, you already for a few words.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having been invited again. It was a huge pleasure to come and attend the third CDIC, which was, as you all realized, a plain success, thanks to the host and congrats, to the ExCom. You once again did just a great job. Please keep in mind the end of CDIC is the beginning of the next step, and one of the next steps, for those of you who are next Tuesday in Switzerland, in Bern, you will be invited to a Swiss IGF, which is a small cozy thing. But there is a next big challenge, what is Eurodic, a week later in Tallinn, in Estonia. And I guess I may see a lot of you in Tallinn again, and it will be a special pleasure, besides the event itself, to have the 10th anniversary of Eurodic, what we will celebrate accordingly in Tallinn. So that's it. The process goes on and the dialogue goes on, and thanks to all of you.
Not with us, but also has been extremely supportive. I need to mention a few other organizations, although they are not here, they have been helping City Galag. We have the IGF Support Association. Mandrus Kuman has spoken to us, I think he did that yesterday. Mafilias Desiree should have been somewhere around, but she has been helpful as well. The Serbian CCTLD Registry, the Council of Europe, European Commission, Internet Society Armenia, and Internet Society Belgrade. So thank you to everyone for supporting CDIC over these past 2 years. And now we have a bit of a, new thing at the closing session of CDIC. As you have been told, we had this year 2 new programs, the Youth School and the Fellowship Program. And Andrea, if we can start with the Youth School, we have some surprises for our students, some diplomas acknowledging their participation in the program. So Andrea, I give the floor.
So where are the students? Stand up. Don't be shy. A big applause to the students. How does it work? Shall I just... So, Wada Mehman, please. Shall we take a picture? Where is it? There.
No. Niente c'è la camera, io si stimere io altele.
Ali Bekrachan.
Ana Romandas?
Nu, n-am nevoie de tot.
Aveți Trachian? Next, Goina Cecea. Diana Mulaci. Gezara Alili. George Sikowski. Ledia Mareka. She's not here, so we give her problem. Loretta Cross. Siete Elezani. Sašo Najdov. Teodora Kiš. Tina Lukezić. Vladović Čovski. So, thank you again. This is the first time that we have this youth school. I'm sure that not the last one. I'm sure that I will see you in another the governance event. We'll see you around. Not physically, it will be online. But just as we said yesterday, it's just the first step of a long, the day before yesterday. It's the first step of a long journey. You will see that you can contribute. We need you as much as we can. Thank you.
Don't give us, we'll have group photo with all certificates. Without love.
Thank you, Andrea, and many thanks to Arjan once again for supporting this program. And the second program we have is the fellowship program, and I would like Jeremy to go into the same practice. Thanks so much. With the yellow flowers? With the yellow. I'll skip the flowers.
Olga Kirliuk, please come. Susonia Harry. Vladimir Svanadze. Ucha Seturi. Nenad Marinkovic. Zia Gogilashvili. Maria Blagojevic. Lia Kubashvili. Domen Savic. Fotion Costa. Katalin Prawie. Velma Kuchukalic. Anesa Agovic. Andrea Maria Tirzil. I'm sorry for if I pronounced it wrongly.
It means late. In Romanian, it means late.
Andra Gugur. And Andrea Russo. Yes, not me just yet. We'll have group photos with the...
Yes, there will be photos with all the groups, but we have a few more announcements to make, and thank you. Thank you, Jeren, thank you, Frederic, Christmas, our ex-team, and great pleasure. On behalf of the executive committee of CIDIC, and I guess of the whole CIDIC committee, congrats to the fellows and the youth who are going to this program and being here with us. And you are now official part of the community, so you won't go away. Thanks, guys. We have another surprise. We announced that the fellowship and the youth sessions, that those that give most will get some prizes, and let us announce the winners. Sonia will do that. But first, let me thank Sonia. Very last minute, she jumped in to help with CIDIC social media. Sonia, thanks a lot for doing that over these past days.
So, just 1 second, I want to get the name right. The person who received the most interaction on their tweets on CIDIC, who is also a fellow, is Maria, but for the last name I'm okay. Yes, Maria.
As promised, a very good memory from Ovid.
Thank you, Sonia, thank you, Maria, and that was the Twitter part. This year has just joined us, so let's say a few words as a supportive organization for CIDIC.
Thank you. I think it shows just it's a worthwhile thing to support. So just on behalf of the LIS, which is the organisation I work for, an Irish American UK registry for .info.md. We love to support talents, and we offer this one.
Thanks for that. Okay, so we will go to the actual final thank you, but before that, one last announcement. We are very, very happy to learn that the organizes own Internet Governance Forum is about to be launched soon. So congrats for that to everyone who's been working on this. And we hope this will inspire other national So for anything CD can help, let us know. And now I have to do the final thank you part for everyone who's been helping with CD, in addition to those that have been already mentioned. So let me start. This will be long. First, agents for electronic communications. I will just say very few names, but the whole team has been amazing, so thanks for that. Alexander, I'm not sure if he's around, but thank you for all the technical support. Some round of applause, please. Thanks so much. Elizabeth, I'm not sure if she's around, but many thanks to her as well, and to Rajika as well, and I'm sure I messed up her name, but I'm sorry. Thank you to Marnet and especially Sanya, if she's around. If not, anyway, she deserves a round of applause. We have another program at CD this year, the internship program. Nerve Powell, just so we can see you. Nerve and Powell have joined us really last minute, but they have been helping CD. Thank you to all those who have helped contributing to the sessions, to the focal points. If I did you one by one, we will never end, but thanks so much for everything. Thank you to those who have helped with the CDIC Youth School, Andrea, Michael, Anya online, and everyone else. Many thanks for that. And well, thank you to you, the community, for being here with us, for contributing to our activities, for putting this program together, because it hasn't been us, the executive committee. And last but not least, thank you to Liana, to Sasho, to Aida, and to Dushan, although he has resigned. Thank you, Sarina. All those outside.
Puede tirar aquela enciclopedia ali, vou tirar a escada já. Mata